never imagined that the woman I planned to marry would one day look me in the eye and frame me like a stranger she despised. It started like any normal morning. I was sipping coffee, scrolling through emails, and mentally preparing for a big presentation at work. Within an hour, everything in my world unraveled. The doorbell rang, a loud, persistent knock, and I remember thinking it must be a package. But when I opened it, 2 police officers were standing there, stone-faced, hands on their belts. "Alexander Reed?" one asked. I nodded, confused. "You're under arrest for domestic assault and attempted strangulation." My heart stopped. My vision blurred. I laughed out of shock, thinking this was some hideous prank. But the cold steel cuffs on my wrist said otherwise. They read me my rights as my neighbors peeked through their curtains. My fiancée Jenna wasn't home. She'd left early, saying she was going to her friend's place to help plan a bridal shower. I was thrown into the back of the cruiser like a criminal, my questions ignored. At the station, they took my fingerprints, my mugshot, all while I struggled to understand what was happening. An officer eventually slid a copy of the report across the desk. Jenna's name was on it. Her statement was chilling. She claimed I had choked her during an argument the night before and threatened to kill her if she ever tried to leave me. She described bruises, fear, trauma. I couldn't believe what I was reading. It felt like someone had hacked reality and rewritten the story of my life. I asked for a lawyer, but my mind was racing faster than I could speak. Why would she do this? We'd had disagreements, sure. Like every couple, we had moments of frustration. But violence? Never. I adored her. Hell, I built my world around her. I'd proposed to her 6 months ago, on a beach in Malibu. She cried. Said yes. Said she couldn't wait to spend forever with me. Was it all a performance? Had I missed the signs? I remembered how she'd started acting distant lately, more secretive with her phone, spending nights out with vague excuses. But nothing could have prepared me for this. As they locked me in a holding cell, I kept playing back our last conversation. She kissed me on the cheek that morning, told me to eat something before I left. Hours later, I was in jail, my life on pause, my career hanging by a thread, and my heart breaking in ways I didn't know were possible. And then, the memory that haunts me most. As they were taking me away from the station to temporary holding, she was standing there, smiling, watching from the lobby. Our eyes met and she smirked. Cold, calculated. As I was being dragged past her, she leaned slightly toward the officer beside her and whispered, loud enough for me to hear, "Have fun in jail, loser." In that moment, I felt something inside me crack. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a war she had declared, and I didn't even know the battlefield. The first night in jail wasn't the worst. It was the morning after that shattered me. I sat in a freezing holding cell, my head pounding from no sleep, trying to replay every moment of the past few weeks like a detective desperate for answers. Why had Jenna done this? What had I missed? I wasn't some monster. I didn't scream at her. I didn't hit her. I never even raised my voice. If anything, I was the one always compromising, backing down to avoid fights. I remember once catching her texting some guy named Ty. And when I questioned it, she cried and made me feel like the villain. "You don't trust me," she'd said. "You always assume the worst." So I dropped it. I always dropped it. And now here I was, arrested for a crime I didn't commit, because I gave her the benefit of the doubt one too many times. My lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Renee, finally met with me that afternoon. "She's playing a dangerous game," she said quietly, flipping through the thin case file. "No bruises. No medical reports. No witnesses. But her word is strong enough to detain you until arraignment. And she's convincing, really convincing." She paused. "She's also filed for a restraining order." I leaned back, dizzy. What does she want from me? Renee didn't answer, but I saw it in her eyes. Power, leverage, maybe even revenge. But for what? That night, I sat alone on the hard bench in my cell, thinking about every time I had loved her when she didn't deserve it. Every moment I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Every birthday surprise. Every stupid apology when I wasn't wrong. It felt like my kindness had been cataloged and used against me. 3 days later, I stood before a judge. The prosecution wanted me to be held without bail. Jenna was there, sitting beside her attorney, dressed in soft beige, no makeup, and her hair pulled back, the perfect image of a wounded, fragile fiancé. She looked down as her lawyer read her statement, pretending to tremble when my name was mentioned. "He has a history of emotional instability," the lawyer said, quoting her. "He's controlling, possessive, and threatened her when she tried to leave." I felt like screaming. The courtroom was silent except for the shuffle of papers and the clink of the bailiff's keys. My friends didn't show. Neither did my colleagues. Jenna had called my job the night of the arrest, claiming she felt unsafe, knowing I had access to client data. I was put on indefinite leave within 24 hours. I'd worked there for 7 years. Never missed a deadline. Never caused a problem. But one phone call from her had undone everything. The world I had built with care, caution, and loyalty was crumbling beneath me. Social media was worse. Vague posts about leaving toxic men flooded her page. Friends we'd had as a couple were suddenly messaging her, praising her courage. I was alone in a storm she had created, and she was the one getting sympathy for surviving it. I started losing sleep. Even when I was released on bail, I couldn't go home. The restraining order barred me from entering my own apartment. She stayed there with all my things, while I slept on a friend's couch, wondering what I had done to deserve this. But deep down, a shift was beginning. The pain was still raw, the betrayal fresh, but something inside me was hardening. I wasn't going to let her destroy me. Not without a fight. And I swore to myself, when the truth comes out, it won't just clear my name. It'll expose every rotten thread in the tapestry she wove. The turning point came 2 weeks later, when Renee called me with a voice sharper than usual. "We've got something," she said. "And it's big." I rushed to her office, where she showed me security camera footage from the lobby of our apartment building. The night Jenna claimed I attacked her, I wasn't even home. I had been at the gym until 10:30 p.m., as confirmed by a time-stamped keycard entry, and a recorded session from a security cam at the gym entrance. She said the assault happened around 10:45. I was still there. For the first time since my arrest, I felt air fill my lungs properly. Renee filed a motion immediately, and the court accepted the footage into evidence. But it wasn't just the footage that unraveled her lies, it was Jenna's own arrogance. She couldn't help but post little pieces of her new life online. There were Instagram stories of her partying with friends while I was allegedly abusing her. One clip, from the night in question, showed her laughing at a rooftop bar, timestamped just minutes after the so-called assault. The prosecution's case began to collapse like a house of cards. Jenna tried to pivot, claimed she was confused about the timeline, that trauma had affected her memory. But the damage was done. The judge dismissed her restraining order and issued a formal warning for potential perjury. My record was cleared. Still, clearing my name wasn't enough. I'd lost my job, my dignity, and months of peace. So I went quiet, but I didn't stop moving. I compiled every piece of evidence I had. Messages, social media posts, the footage, and the official documents. Then I filed a civil suit for defamation and malicious prosecution. My employer, after reviewing the final court documents, quietly offered me my position back, but I declined. Instead, I leaked a full account of what had happened anonymously on a popular legal subreddit, where it exploded overnight. Thousands of people commented, offering support, outrage, and solidarity. A few of Jenna's mutuals recognized the story, and her. It went viral within a week. The fallout hit her like a storm. Her carefully crafted victim image crumbled. Friends unfollowed. Her job, where she worked in PR, placed her on suspension. Her name became associated with false accusations, and the sympathy she once bathed in evaporated under the heat of public scrutiny. And yet I didn't feel joy. Just silence. A quiet, steady sense of reclaiming something that had been stolen. I wasn't proud of what I had to do, but I was proud that I hadn't let her win. I stood outside the courthouse after the civil hearing, where she was ordered to pay damages. She didn't look at me as she left the building, head down, heels clicking against the pavement. For the first time in months, I felt taller than I actually was. I wasn't the same man who had once knelt with a ring in his hand, heart in his throat. That version of me had died the day she smiled while I was being handcuffed. The man who stood there now, He was sharper, stronger, and less willing to tolerate masks worn by liars. Later that night, I sat on my apartment balcony, my real home, reclaimed, restored. I lit a small candle and placed it on the table beside me, not for Jenna, not for revenge, but as a reminder to never ignore the signs again, to never sacrifice my truth for someone else's comfort, and to always, always believe in my own worth. Even when the world calls you a criminal for daring to love the wrong person.